Hello, and welcome to the Bardic INNspiration.
On this episode, we're going to continue our delve down into the Underdark. We're going to discuss the Masters of the Depths, the Aboleth.
Masters of the Depths as in underwater lakes, deeper into the Underdark?
Absolutely. So, before the coming of the gods, the Aboleths lurked in the primordial lakes and the oceans, the underground lakes. Before they reach, they would reach out to creatures in the Underdark and possess their minds to make them their slaves.
Wait, so you're saying these things have psionic abilities?
Absolutely. Very powerful psionic.
Huh, gives me a couple ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Are they like fully sentient? Can they speak? Can they?
They can speak telepathically, and I believe it is deep speech. So it's like a Underdark, not undercommon, but more of a deeper.
It's a very alien language.
So it can definitely communicate with the beholders.
Correct.
Of course. Maybe even
with the
possess
deep
them.
speech.
So do these things just live specifically in waters?
Yes.
And only?
They rarely leave. They can, but they move and they lose their powers as that.
It's not so much that they lose their powers, it's that they kind of go into, at least the way that I imagine it, is they kind of go into a panic mode. Much like a fish out of water. Because left out of the water long enough, they will kind of shrivel and die. They have some abilities to give them a mucus. They kind of secretes a bubble around itself. And once that bubble is pierced, then they'll shrivel up and die straight up.
Yummy.
Yeah, they have an ability with mucus, and in fact, yeah.
Well, and that's the other thing too, is that if it is out of water and it does go into this mucus form, it still should have lots of control over lots of other creatures that perhaps traverse the land normally. That'll help it get back into the water.
So it can't just wriggle and writhe its way back to the ocean?
It
or
can.
The lake?
They move slowly on land. It's just kind of awkward. They more or less use like their tentacles, and it would be like a whale that grew like little stubbly legs, and it just tried to slowly like drag its way across.
I would love to see that. I'm saying, if these things are that terrifying, I would love to see it wash up. Trying to get back to the lake.
Well, for the record, though, they're also very smart, and they're very, they're sentient creatures.
Right.
Like, they're older than, in some cases, than gods themselves.
Yes.
And they have amazing memories, and they're extremely intelligent, so it would be funny to see one wash up onto, a beach. But the likelihood of such, I would say, would be pretty low.
So, a quick clarification on that. Out of water, it dries up, the skin dries up and everything. That alone is not fatal. It's after it produces this waterproof kind of membrane that if that is pierced, then it usually leads to its death. So it can stay out of water, it does move slow and so forth, but it's more that membrane that it has to, the adventurers trying to, say, slay a Aboleth would have to work on. So let's hope you know about that in character.
So, what's its description? We said it has tentacles. It's like an octopus? Is it more like an eel?
To me, it looks like a mind flayer fish. It's got the jaw like tentacles. It's got the weird 3 eyes. It's very alien in description and looks. A couple sources I found basically describe it as a hybrid between a fish, an eel, and a worm.
So now, is it on the levels of size of Kraken-wise, or is it smaller?
It is a large creature, so it's not Kraken size.
Mechanically, yeah. It's typically about 20 feet. On average, they weigh almost 3-4 tons.
Yeah, but it could definitely pull something inside.
Oh, yeah. So,
water.
in other words, sailing across a lake in the Underdark, not the wisest if it's infested with these
Absolutely
things.
not. There are other things down there too, but
It's true.
another discussion on that.
Yeah.
So is its main form of attacking is to drag things down, or will it use its psionic abilities otherwise?
More of a psionic abilities, I would say. It kind of possesses the mind and just pulls them in. But it does have it has the tentacle grab. It has tail attacks. It can pull the tail out and just snatch someone.
I would say it depends on its need, because it also has a mucus, viscous gray fluid, often described as mucus, that will transform if a air-breathing creature is hit by it into dominated slaves that breathe water.
Right.
If you're out of water while under the disease of this mucus, you can't breathe air anymore. You can only breathe water. So it's kind of a weird twist that this mucus does to its slaves.
It forces them to breathe water?
It forces them to have to breathe water. Now, if you want to get all sciencey, I would say it doesn't require the oxygen as much as it does the hydrogen in water.
Well, that's sciencey. What I'm thinking now is the fact that if there are like wizards that are intentionally farming this mucus to make potions of water breathing.
Oh, that would be awesome.
That actually is very interesting, because, well, here's the problem is, yeah, you're using this mucus, and it would be actually, that would actually be, I would say that would be one of the ingredients.
Yeah.
For water breathing.
That would make it much more harder to make,
Aboleth mucus.
especially if you need it.
But here's the thing is, you have to dilute the psionic ability from the mucus.
Yeah.
Because it does turn you into their slave.
True.
Now, here's the question. Would you cage it underwater or over water?
So, slight clarification, actually. The mucus itself is just what makes them only able to breathe in water.
Mm-hmm.
The part that allows the Aboleth to enslave it is its psionic ability.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it just makes it easier to dominate them because they're already forced. They're basically... It's like making people lose their will to live because now they're above water. They can't breathe the air that they're currently in. So it's kind of like an enticement, like, come to the water. Come to the water. And the closer you get to its waters, the more power it has over your mind.
That's fair.
That's one way, but yeah, I think what
it's not like a direct domination. It's more of like a loss of will kind of idea.
It's one of those powerful creatures that has legendary actions.
Oh god.
So it has the psychic drain. So if it does enslave you, it can do psychic damage, and it will revert to, or it will gain those HP back.
So wait,
forcing it on your players.
You said it was a psionic drain,
right? So
does that make you stupid?
No. It's just you take the psychic damage. You basically get a huge migraine.
Oh god. So it
your
doesn't
brain hurts, your master lives. That's a fair trade.
Right.
So it doesn't take away from your intelligence. That's at least somewhat okay.
Right. It's not a mind flayer.
No.
Or an intellect devourer. That's what the.
What are the other legendary actions?
So.
It attacks.
Yeah, it attacks, and then it also has
that's special
layer effects.
Oh.
Layer effects come into play. So it has the Phantasmal Force, which it can cast with no components required either. So
basically, you see something that is damaging to only you, and it's all in your mind.
Right. That
it's like an illusionist's favorite spell. I'm gonna make you hurt yourself. It's funny that we're kind of going into this comparison with mind flayers, because they're really not like, yes, they have the same sort of alien-like psionic ability, but they really don't work well together. Mainly because Aboleths are very much like, kind of take a little bit of the Beholder aspect too, where they are the true race. They are the god race themselves. They're very self-centered. Everything that belongs to them and anything that anyone else gained to help their own race was, in the Aboleth's mind, taken from the Aboleths themselves. So fire, structure, so on and so forth. Free will.
Which even in a way goes back to a lot of lore about Aboleths themselves, because the idea is that they were around like the primordial planes before the gods even came into existence, and then the gods essentially ripped away everything that they had. So another thing about Aboleths of why they focus so much on enslaving people and creating thralls to do their bidding is
they in many ways think that they deserve almost to be worshipped as gods.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing is the Aboleths, being as old as they are, and I'll get a little more into description on how an Aboleth is so old, but they don't know how a Lithid came into existence. They don't have any knowledge of where they came from, and so they're unsettled by this lack of knowledge. Being such smart creatures, not having the information is scary to them.
So would it know how other creatures came into being?
I would just say yes, if it had the memories.
So can individual Aboleths have lived since the beginning of this?
Yeah, so they don't die of old age. They only die of violence or disease.
In other words, adventurers.
Adventures. But they also have this weird racial memory. So they retain memories and information from their ancestors. And often in their own solitude, they will relive these memories in their own minds.
Oh, God.
Well,
that
even
sounds
that, you mentioned that
unpleasant.
they die from these effects, but they don't even die. When their body is destroyed, their spirit goes to the water plane, and it takes a few days for a body to be crafted for it.
So are these
Again.
water elemental in nature then?
Sort of. They're very alien in nature. But I mean, so is anything from a different plane. It's very alien to the normal, I would say normal with quotations, races. It's interesting though, because yeah, it's funny because with such intelligence, such strength, they would much rather live in these memories than go and conquer and go and hurt themselves, go and die. Especially because of the superiority that they have over other races, weaker, quote unquote. We've mentioned a few times that they come often from the plane of water, which actually houses a pretty big Aboleth city. So they are known to have little
They have societies?
societies. Yeah, they're more of a
Hierarchy, presidential.
I'd say it's more like a hierarchy. Like, so mom and pop breed some children. The children go off and have their own little cliques, and when they have the little children, they breed off. And every time it's like coming of age, they go and separate and start their own family. So very much like humans, but it's kind of weird because sometimes they will live within those societies. So they will stay home with mom essentially. And everything, as long as they recognize that the older Aboleth is the supreme reign, and if you don't like that, then you can leave.
Interesting. So not like religious monarchy, but a monarchy in some ways.
A little bit. It doesn't necessarily have to be mom or dad because they have both male and female sexual organs.
Oh, okay.
And they lock themselves away to hide, so on and so forth. Or to reproduce them, sorry.
Don't know if I'd want to visit an Aboleth city.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Do you know what alignment they typically run? Because I've seen mixtures of what they can be, but it's all, I would say, based off story. Because they do see themselves as superior race. They do see the need for slaves to assist them in areas of need. But as far as they're not conquering, so I mean,
as far as their alignment, they typically do tend to be lawful evil. They don't necessarily. They prefer sitting with their own memories as opposed to conquering. That being said, they still like to go out and conquer.
yeah,
They do take joy in being very cruel creatures, manipulating, taking advantage of things, subverting entire species to worship them.
well, like very much like Koatoa. But because the reason I was asking is, okay, so these creatures have either lived a very long time or have memories from, say, the beginning of time. I imagine that these creatures would be great sources of information for, say, history of your world. For example, many campaigns run off of the idea that you need to gather these overpowered weapons or items to slay said big bad or a big bad. I imagine that an Aboleth would be a great source for this information. Now, whether or not he's willing to help you, I think would be the major issue of getting past his psionic defenses, getting past his lair,
And hopefully not getting
and
mind
all
controlled.
and all the slaves, and avoiding mind control, avoiding like it almost seems too dangerous. But for the information that you could gain, if you could somehow force this Aboleth to give you this information, I imagine would almost be worth it.
If you can find a way to protect yourself from the psionic abilities, I would say force it to be beached.
7th level mind blank.
I mean, you could also even try to, like, make a deal with the Aboleth. Because, you know, it still has wants and desires. Like we said, it is
Yeah.
a sentient being.
That's true.
So, if you're a party of adventurers and say you're looking for these, I don't know, god-killing items, and you're like, well, why don't we talk to something that really hates gods, and remembers gods, and is really old? Let's go talk to the wrinkly fish in the lake.
Well, I wouldn't say they hate gods. They just
No, they
prefer they don't exist anymore.
They absolutely hate gods.
They hate
because
gods.
the gods destroyed their civilizations.
Well, it's the way that I kind of see it is it's
Stop defending the gods.
I am defending the gods. No, because I see it as they prefer the time before gods existed. They recognize that they exist. They recognize that they have the power to.
So what you're saying is it'd be good for having an evil party to go and find an Aboleth to kill gods. Because
That would be great, epic, evil campaign.
Yeah.
So, guys, next campaign, evil campaign. Go find the Aboleth for the god-killing items.
Boy. I would find an Aboleth to see if it knows a way to become a god.
Well,
Go talk to Vecna.
okay, Vecna. I was just thinking the
Who knows?
same
Maybe
thing.
that's what he did. Find out what Vecna found out from the Aboleths.
Yeah, right. And it's
That's one way to do it. It's like if Vecna's on the rise, but he had once gotten information from Aboleth, find out what it is that he learned from them.
brings to interesting quotation. If it had the knowledge, why wouldn't an Aboleth turn into a lich?
Ooh.
Well,
It
already
has the knowledge.
It already has that lich ability. I mean, like, it's getting teleported to the plane of water,
It likes the prime plane, why?
right? Just keeps on coming back.
Or all the portals or rifts between the plane of water and the prime material plane are closed. So
just
either it just
imagining
dies
undead.
or it can't come back.
Aboleth.
Yeah.
And it wants to stay here.
That would
It
be a
wants to-
great quest. Find way to kill an Aboleth, because it's just gonna come back.
Well,
The
here's
mesh
the-
spout.
That's true.
I
Here's-
wish for you no longer to exist.
So if you kill a Aboleth in the plane of water, is it very much like the demons where it just kills them? Because that would be an interesting way to do it too.
Yeah.
Definitely find a wizard to transform some of this mucus into water breathing potions
Yes.
before you go there, though.
Yeah.
Maybe a ring of water breathing or something, because it's a
I
lot
love-
of water.
I love the effects that it has in the region where it's at. So, like, if players are going up towards it, like, its
It's
layer,
within its layer region.
yeah, within a mile, if they drink any water in that source, they start throwing up.
Ooh.
So, like, okay, why are we throwing up? Oh, that's right. Some guy told us that there was an Aboleth down here, and that was the effects around that area.
Could you imagine that you're already low on water? You finally, like, you're in the Underdark. You've run out of all your resources because you've been traveling for weeks. You finally find a
Our
source of
druid
water.
died. He can't create water for us anymore.
Yeah.
Everything's going down.
Everything's just going downhill, and you finally find a source of water. Now, your smart adventures, you try to boil it, make sure there's not going to get disease from it, so on and so forth. But as soon as you drink that fresh and clean water, you still throw up, and you can't figure out why. And you can't keep any water down. Now you're starting to dehydrate yourself because you're throwing up. It's a very interesting idea, and it kind of confirms the idea that the Underdark itself is a harsh place to live.
True.
Yep.
Also means there's an Aboleth nearby, within a mile. Which direction? You have no idea.
Probably
soon you're-
towards the more sources of water.
Or even, you're still thoroughly prepared, and you start drinking from your water skin that you carried from the surface, but you're throwing it up now. Why am I throwing up water?
Oh,
That is
just
guaranteed fresh.
generally in a mile distance, not the water that he's in contact with.
I would imagine it would be any water.
Or, so in that case, backtrack a second. The druid in your party has been creating water for you to drink. All of a sudden, you guys all start throwing up from it.
Well, jeez, Gerald, what did you do to the water?
See, now I'm just imagining, like, as they're walking, they're drinking, and, like, they pass that boundary, and all of a sudden,
It is a water source, so water sources within 1 mile of the lair are supernaturally fouled.
Ugh.
Enemies of the Aboleth that drink such water vomit in within a minute.
Enemies is an interesting point, though.
That's true.
Are you considered an enemy as soon as you enter its territory? Or is it along the hostile notion that you're not an enemy until you attack?
That would be up to the DM.
I feel like if that...
I like the idea of, oh shit, we're in a mile, you guys
Yeah,
start
I like the constant until you become friends with it. Because it doesn't know anyway, and having to wait for it to determine that you're an enemy just seems kind of pointless at that point.
That's true. Let's hope you have some valuable information for an Aboleth. The person who's lived forever has all the knowledge.
Or just
the origins,
seeking information.
The origins of the Illithid.
We know where Mind Flayers came from. We will share this information to you in exchange for a fresh cup of tea.
And information.
And that.
And information. Gotta remember the information part.
You think an Aboleth would want to make a jump on the
information.
option to give you tea rather than something informative? Don't start with the tea.
So I imagine that they're kind of very similar to green dragons and they're kind of
Cunning?
warped cunning, yeah. Because they're highly intelligent creatures. They're on par with beholders and mind flayers.
Mm-hmm.
If not better, because they've lived that much longer, they already have all this information again.
And then to that also, I would also say better because Aboleths have flawless memories.
That's true.
They don't forget things. They
Keen
don't
mind
make
feats.
mistakes. Basically, keen mind forever.
So
Essentially.
So how long does it take them though to process a memory? Like if they were to if you were to ask them what is the origins of such and such, would they have to think on it or would they know it automatically?
I imagine it's like a video where they could fast forward if necessary.
Fast forward, rewind. No, too far.
But wait, hold on. Ooh. Meet an Aboleth with a quirky attitude.
How so?
Or a sassy Aboleth.
Sassy Aboleth,
Oh,
that would be
God.
funny.
It just gives you attitude to every answer.
Jeez, I'm getting there. Hold on.
Why do you guys all have so many questions?
Ah, you're so loud.
Why do you keep throwing up all over the place? Gosh!
So,
I broke them.
Wait, no, get out of my mind.
so have any of us come across an Aboleth in the Underdark? I know I'm running an Underdark session or two here shortly, but I don't know if I'm going to throw an Aboleth in. Has anyone else used one to great effect?
Well, actually, you have used an Aboleth before because I fought an Aboleth and it was in your campaign.
Oh, that's right.
Because it was in the Princes of the Apocalypse campaign.
Yeah.
And I don't remember much from that. What I do remember is it hits really hard, and it attacks a lot, and we also learned that they can, in some ways, succeed at having groups of people worship them as gods, because if I remember correctly, I think it was like a group of
Koatoa.
that were just worshipping this Aboleth as their god. They were little weird eel statues, and we were walking up and we're like, what are these things?
Yeah.
And then we walked into one room and there was this giant mess of water everywhere, and there was an Aboleth. And then one of our allies also jumped over a whirlpool and almost fell in. But
See, now I haven't ever planned for an Aboleth, but I definitely have ideas now that I enjoy the thought of possibly ever using them.
Right. I know, player-wise, I've come across a Aboleth in your campaign.
yeah, that was in my campaign also. Yeah, I had an Aboleth. I'm going to actually try to see if I can find the notes for it, maybe. But it was essentially a Aboleth that, in a sense, was good. Or relatively speaking, was good, at least as far as the party was concerned. And he was... Oh, I do have his name. 1 second.
Yeah, I wish I had the name.
I do. His name was Lord Antherion. And essentially, he was in this extremely large lake inside a very majestic mountain of sorts, called Mount Freeze. And basically there was this large group of druids that were in the area around this mountain worshipping him. And he essentially, as far as they were concerned, being that he was from, like, the primordial times of Earth, had a very deep understanding to the natural world as it was. So as such, these druids stayed and learned from him, and he shared multiple secrets with them about the multiverse as he knows it. Which, in a sense, not to give away anything, is basically a very masterful form of subversion of a druidic culture.
So, Daniel, you were saying that you want to go seek out an Aboleth. That's in his world, so we could go...
Anytime.
Search him out. Mount Freeze. We already know what it's called.
But my character doesn't know
Right.
None of
that
us
the
would.
Aboleth
Right.
even
You
exists.
just drop into the campaign. I know where to go, guys. That way.
Keen mind.
I have to read it first. Now, I do have an idea that I have batted back and forth between using it because they are Aboleth and they are very strong and powerful, but I'm not sure. So, okay, let me just get into my idea. So, quick note, going off the racial memory, Aboleths also assimilate any memories of those they consume.
Ooh.
So it's not necessarily their own memories that they're reliving, it's other people's memories as well. So an idea I had, kind of a two-parter. It's either run a high-level campaign and TPK with an Aboleth, or a one-shot with a TPK of an Aboleth, in which your new campaign, the second campaign, has to find this Aboleth and gather information, and they gather information from the fallen heroes. So they have to go to this Aboleth and basically ask this Aboleth, hey, what did quote-unquote first character, what did he do with the Orb of Annihilation, for example?
Now, see, now that you say the fact that it absorbs memories of that it consumes, I'm kind of now imagining what would have happened if the Aboleth had beaten Vecna if he came down for information.
Right?
It absorbed Vecna's memories. Now we have a Vecna Aboleth.
A Vecna Aboleth.
Well,
Because it takes the memories, but it's that strong of mind that it doesn't influence its own personality.
Okay.
So it assimilates it, but it's kind of like the Borg.
Yeah.
If you want to think about it, like...
So wait, would all memories then go spreading out to all Aboleth, or would it just that one Aboleth get
just the one that
memories?
consumed it.
See, then that's
Like,
confused.
it's like maybe its own slaves might have that same memory if given. Like, it might have... So the way that I would run it is that,
So wait,
say a character was enslaved. So that TPK led to one of the characters not being necessarily consumed, but ends up becoming this long-lived slave, the right-hand man of the Aboleth, for example. Well, until he's said cured or whatnot, he would have flashes of his own ally's memory. Or memories of... So, like, whenever the Aboleth is running through memories, he's getting flashes of it from the Aboleth.
Ooh, that's
because
just
they're psychic...
that's torment.
Yeah. Especially if they were star-crossed lovers.
Well,
Now you're reliving. You're forced to relive these memories of your significant other that just got ate by an Aboleth years and years ago, and you've been tormented with that. How much would it take to break the mind?
boy. Is it, well, no, the idea I had just now is like, do Aboleths share memories?
I don't think that's the case because,
Well,
like,
then,
it's not a mind flare call.
Right, right. So the question would be then, if there was new information brought to that Aboleth, all the other Aboleth wouldn't know. Like, say if it was the information to the origins of the Illithid, but only the Aboleth would know.
They would only know if, obviously, spoken about it, much like
Right.
person to person, or if you were offspring from that Aboleth. Because as offspring, you retain the information from your ancestors. So...
I'm also partially thinking of, like, they have a social media in their minds. Just share memories. You want it?
I
got that memory right here.
I off of that was thinking when you were saying it was the Aboleth just sitting there reliving its memories. I'm just imagining it's just like laying in like some underwater like cavern, just chilling, eating some kelp, and it's just watching like its encounters
like a
and
movie.
fights.
Reruns
Yeah, exactly.
of Friends.
Yeah. It's like, hey, do you remember that bard? Yeah, I do.
He was delicious.
He was delicious.
So kind of
So
another
many
idea
stories.
going off of that mind flayer. So somehow they get access to the pool
Ooh,
of mind
like
flayer.
if they got the brain.
Well, it's the same pool, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, now these have infected Aboleths themselves, and now they're Aboleth mind flayers. Kind of like the what's the name of the worm? I think we're getting way off topic, but
I know which worm you're talking about from the
So the idea is that
Volos.
quick note that in the Elder Brain pool, there's much of little tiny mind flayers that when these worms are given to hosts, it transforms the host into mind flayers.
And we will go into that more detailed on a episode. We definitely want to do mind flayers at one point.
Yes.
Yeah.
I wanted to go back to the idea that we had earlier, which was talking about if an Aboleth wanted to become a Lich.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
I'm just saying that, granted, yes, the Aboleth will just eventually have its own body reformed on the water plane, and then could eventually make its way back to the material plane and just restart from scratch. However, that being said, a Lich Aboleth may be the funnest idea that I've heard. I may want to use that.
Would it be a Lich Aboleth or Abolich?
Aboleth. I like an Aboleth.
That's awesome.
And as far as its reason for why, could be granted it already has like this perfect memory and everything, but what could it do to defeat a god in that sense?
Yeah.
Could be what if it finds some other source of immortality other than retreating back to its plane.
And it could find a way to stay out of water better while being a lich.
True.
Polymorph.
Yeah.
Um,
So in other words, it would be like a normal lich, but
Oh.
its actual form is an aboleth.
exactly.
Here's another question. An Aboleth leads a wizard. Are they able to cast spells now? They have the psionic ability. They have the knowledge of the spells that when they ate the wizard.
And how they like
Somatic.
function. They have tentacles.
Somatic.
If
component.
anything
Component,
that
yeah,
Doctor
that'd be
Strange has
hard.
taught us, you don't need hands.
He uses his hands.
He doesn't fix his hands until
The dude that
I was
didn't
talking about the
have
guy without a
hand,
hand.
Oh,
just straight up had a stump that was able to make that.
that's
That's
true.
a fair
That's
point.
true.
Yeah.
You just have to make the motions. You don't have to have the digits
Yeah.
to do so.
I think though materials, like you said, would be the harder one to do. At least until they're able to get out of the water
Well,
and get
that's
more.
so much like
Use the
psionic
wizard
spellcasters.
staff.
Well, no, much like psionic spellcasters, the source is, or the material source is their psionic ability.
Oh, okay.
I love just this image that I have of like this Aboleth just waving its tentacles in the air, just casting a spell.
I just see
In
a
one
ship.
tentacle, it has the wizard's staff.
I
It's
just-
got the little wizard's hat on the top of its three eyes.
I think of a ship just going through the water, and all of a sudden tentacles just pop out and just
Thank you for
trying to
that.
do spells.
All right.
Uh,
I think that covers it.
Yeah.
I think that's it for the Aboleth. Until next time.
Thank you for staying at the Bardic Inn. If you would like to hear more, we will be uploading new content Thursdays at noon PST on
iTunes, YouTube, Castbox, and Podbean.
If you have any recommendations on future content, you can leave a comment on these various platforms, or you can contact us on Twitter at the Bardic Inn, or on Facebook at facebook.com/Bardic Inn.
We're your local bards.
Daniel.
Andrew.
Dan,
And Jake.
be inspired.